All right, good morning. How are y'all doing this morning? It's great to be here. Anyone who said this is the quick way here has never gone on 485 in the morning rush hour. So I live over in Ballantyne. Actually represent Ballantyne in the state house. So this is my third term in the state legislature, and so it's incredible to be with y'all this morning. Thank y'all so much for coming to Charlotte. Really appreciate being here. My name is Wesley Harris. I'm the Democratic nominee for state treasurer this year, and we have a great opportunity this year for not only what we can do for y'all, but what we can do for all state employees in North Carolina to make sure that we can form the state government that not only works for everybody, but a state government that the best people want to work for. And I think that is the ultimate goal of the state treasurer for this state. It's one of the few council of state races that has a defined constituency. That is the state employees in North Carolina. That is the state employee and governmental retirees, because this is y'all's position. And so I'm here for y'all. And so the first thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you so much for your service to North Carolina, for devoting your career and your lives to the people of North Carolina. Y'all are the manifestation of good governance. It does not matter what policies we pass in the legislature, what the governor does, what anybody does, if we do not have great people working for the government of North Carolina. So y'all are what makes government work. And so I just want to thank y'all from the bottom of my heart, from everything that y'all have done and everything y'all have given to the state of North Carolina, to the people of North Carolina. And I know that from personal perspective. So a bit about me, I'm a North Carolina native. I grew up about an hour and a half up the road, a little county called Alexander County and a little town called Taylorsville. So rural, actually I had to be born in the county next door because I went to hospital in my county. So I'm the son of a lifelong public school teacher who is now a state employee retired teacher. So any issue with the state health plan or retirement program, she's the first one I hear from. So it's personal to me. And my dad was a local banker. As I like to tell folks, put a banker and a state employee together, and that literally is the treasurer's office. So you could say I was born for this. And so, every opportunity I've had in my life has been because of people in this room. Because of great state employees who took the time to invest in me, to care about me, to focus on anything that I could do. And I'm not unique. My story is only true because of people like y'all in a state like North Carolina. And I am who I am today because I had a state that invested in me, invested in my community, and most importantly, invested in the people that allowed them to invest in me. And so I was a public school kid my entire life. I went to UNC Chapel Hill for undergrad, was an economics major, then went down to Clemson and got my PhD in economics. And when I got back to North Carolina, decided to run for State House in 2018 and won. Like I said, representing the Ballantyne area. And I'm actually the only PhD economist in the entire legislature. And so since my time in the legislature, I've been the lead member of my party on every finance and economic issue that's come before the body. And so you'll be hard-pressed to find another elected official in this state that understands the state finances better than I do. And so let's get into some of those finances with the treasurer's office. So again, the big thing that y'all care about is the pension plan and the state health plan. And as Treasurer Falwell said, which I want to thank Treasurer Falwell for all of his years of service and his strong stewardship of this office that he's done with respect and integrity. But we do have a lot of improvements that we can make to make sure that we are making the investments in you. And so good news, bad news about our pension plan is we have one of the best funded pension plans in the entire country. Over 88% of our pension plan is funded, or around 88% is funded. The problem is we have one of the worst performing pension plans in the country. If you look over these past two cycles, so the top one is the 2023 fiscal year returns, the bottom one's the 2024 fiscal year returns. We are lagging behind the entire rest of the stock market. If you look at the Dow Jones average, it's well over double, actually over triple. The S&P 500 is over double. And while this last year we did a little bit better, we're still lagging behind what most market indices are doing. And why does that matter? It matters because of how big our pension plan is and what we're paying out. In the sense that we have almost $7.5 billion in benefits we pay out every single year, and our pension plan, as Treasurer Falwell said, is about $125 billion. So that means we need, on average, about a minimum of 6.5% return every year just to keep the system solvent. And as you see in 2023, we didn't even hit that when the stock market was going great. 2024, we did hit it, But again, look at how much money we left on the table. And so there are some significant improvements we can make that actually aren't going to increase our risk profile very much so that we can make sure that we can improve our performance. Because again, that 6.5%, that just pays out exactly what we have right now. That doesn't consider any cost of living adjustment whatsoever. And so if we want to be able to make those cost of living adjustments, which we should be able to make those cost of living adjustments, we have to perform better on our pension plan. And again, the good news is it's a fairly easy fix. The reason why we're lagging behind is because 14% of our $125 billion pension plan is sitting in cash. And almost over 35% is sitting in cash and low return securities, fixed income securities, excuse me. And so the good news is that in every other state, every other pension plan, that cash balance is about 2%. Talk with your financial advisor when y'all go home and ask how much of y'all's retirement program is held in cash. It ain't 14%. It ain't close to 14%. And so we can lower that and just invest in index funds. We don't have to take a super risky portfolio stance or do something super complicated. It's pretty simple. And if we do that, we lower that down to even, we can still have the most conservative cash balance in the country, and we would be getting an extra $1 billion in returns every year. In fact, an analysis over the past 5 years, we could have had one of the most conservative investment strategies and still had an extra $10 billion in our pension fund, which would have covered any cost of living adjustment we could have dreamed of, would have kept pace with inflation over the last 5 years, and it could have allowed us to lower our employee contributions, which could have freed up some cash to help us satisfy our state health plan. And so that's the big issue, that we're just not performing. And again, in 22, a study from Yale said we were literally 50 out of 50 in terms of pension performance. And so it's not all doom and gloom, because like I said, we do have one of the best funded pension plans in the country. So we can cover all of our liabilities, so you don't have to worry about it going insolvent right now. But we have so much potential and such low-hanging fruit to improve our pension plan so everybody here can benefit from it, and the people who are thinking about joining state employment or joining the public sector can look and say, okay, well, if I join public sector, I know that my retirement's going to be taken care of. And getting younger people into the system, buying into it for 30 years, that itself is going to make the pension plan even more well-funded, which is going to help keep it more solvent. And like I said, we can do better we just got to lower our cat's pouch. We got to invest these things. And again, you got to look at things. So over the past couple of years, we've had a tremendous stock market growth. And things are starting to get a little bit uncertain now. We'll probably see in the next couple of weeks, they'll lower interest rates a little bit. And so things may get a little bit more volatile, as we've seen in the market. And so you got to be wary of that. And so that's why the most important thing is you got to take advantage of the good times. These past couple of years, where we've had 10, 15, 20% stock market performance, we should have been keeping pace with that, because it's not always going to be that great. We're going to have times where we're going to have recessions. We're going to have times where we're not going to have the returns we need. And so we need to take advantage of the good times, so when the uncertain times comes, when that volatility comes, we will have to take a much more conservative approach with the pension plan. And so it's not going to be something that's going to be super static. It's going to be moving based on the conditions of the economy. And that's actually one of the key differences in kind of this race of how we're viewing kind of governance. So North Carolina is a sole fiduciary in the sense that the treasurer has complete control of the pension plan, which is great, because that means y'all have complete control of the pension plan. It is 100% accountable to the voters, accountable to the people. And I want to keep it that way, versus there's some proposals to take away that sole fiduciary and give it to a committee, which in North Carolina, if you give it to a committee, you're giving it to the state legislature. You're giving it to the legislature to handpick the people who are going to determine what the pension is, and therefore you lose your voice. Because if there's one thing, I serve in the legislature. There is one thing this legislature does not need, and that is more power and more control over how our pension plan is adjusted. And so it is my sole commitment that we will keep this as a sole fiduciary. So it is answerable to you, the people of North Carolina, and the retirees. And again, like I said, we got to recruit more younger folks to come in. That makes it a little bit more solvent as well. So that's the pension plan. Like I said, that one, it's the biggest issue, but I don't think it's the hardest one to solve. The hardest one to solve is going to be the state health plan, because like I said, being a sole fiduciary, the treasurer can single-handedly change the pension plan. State health plan is going to have to take some work. We're going to have to use some political forces, like Treasurer Falwell says, which I completely agree with. It's a math problem, but it's a math problem wrapped in a political problem, in the sense that if you look over, we have over 750,000 people that are either retirees or active duty, I guess, active state employees who pay into the state healthcare system and depend on the state healthcare system, which is huge. If you look around North Carolina, we have 100 counties. 61 of those counties, the largest employer is someone who depends on the state health plan or the state retirement system. And every single county, a government agency is in the top 5 employers. So there was an incredible amount of political power in this room and with state employees. And so we got to start using it. If you look over the last couple of years, we're facing a $100 million shortcoming. And over the next couple of years, it's going to be looking at $500 million. I'll tell you this, what makes this worse is it's really expensive to be poor. To put that another way, you can't invest in preventative care if you do not have the money on the front side. And if you do not invest in preventative care on the front end, it is going to cost you 10 times more on the back end. And the fact that we are underfunding our pension plan on the front end means that we are not able to invest in those preventative care programs. We are not able to cover those GLP-1s, negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies to make sure we do get the fair prices, but we have to cover these things. Because if we do not, the cost of heart disease down the road, of diabetes down the road, of early premature cancer and other chronic illnesses down the road will be so much more expensive than it would be today if we fixed it. And so we have to focus on making sure that we properly fund our state health plan and hold our legislature accountable so that they do fund those things. Because at the end of the day, like I said, 61 counties, the largest employer is a state employee. And it does not matter, no matter how you feel on so many other issues that are in politics right now, abortion, guns, LGBTQ rights, all the social issues, it should be a non-starter for any person who wants to serve in North Carolina state government to not believe in investing in our state employees, investing in our health plan, and investing in our retirement plan. And with how many people work for the state health plan or are a part of the state health plan, we can make that happen. We just have to go out there and hold our legislators accountable, because that has to be the baseline. We have to invest in our state employees, because if we don't, we are not going to have people who are willing to work for our state government. And the biggest thing for this is that, again, how can we do better? We have a 25% vacancy rate in state employment. 1 out of every 4 state employee jobs is empty. That means we do not have young people buying into the system. And so our pool is getting older and it's getting sicker, which is getting more expensive. And so aside from having the General Assembly have to make sure we fund the state health plan, we have to talk about compensation. We have to talk about raises. And it's going to be critical on the people in this room. Even though y'all are retired, you have to put that pressure on our state legislator, because y'all are going to be the people who are going to pay the cost if we do not have people who are willing to work for the state government. 1 out of 4 vacancies. We have to do better, because that in itself is going to make sure that we make the plan solvent, along with our ability to invest in preventative care, lower that risk pool so that we can lower overall costs and negotiate with our hospitals. And so those are the big things. And then I got one more thing to talk about, and it's not directly related to the Treasurer's Office, but it's critical in the sense of how our state government can work better and how it needs to, and that's taxes. So over the last couple of years, our policies have shifted the tax burden away from the state level and more towards our local government. As we've been cutting taxes, income taxes and corporate taxes, those services still have to be provided, and those are falling on the county governments. And while on the state level you have 8 or 9 tax levers you can pull, on the local government you only got 2. You got sales tax and you got property tax. Sales tax you can only change if the legislature lets you. Legislature ain't too keen on letting people change sales tax willy-nilly, so it comes down to property taxes. Mecklenburg County alone, where I live, over 20% of our $2 billion budget is spent on operating expenses the state should be covering. And that's true in almost every county around this state. Every single county around this state. And if you look over the last couple of years, 2 years ago, 90 counties had to raise property taxes, 90. This last year, 92 counties had to raise property taxes. And I'll tell you this about income tax. No one's ever gone broke paying income tax. You got to earn that money before you can get taxed on it. That ain't true with property tax, particularly the folks in this room who are on retirement, who are on fixed income. As your property values rise, your tax bill's rising, even though your income isn't rising. Y'all retired. Y'all should be getting the tax cuts now. Y'all have done your job. You've paid into the system. You've done the services you need, but because our legislature is changing our tax code, that burden is placing unnecessarily on those in fixed income and on those of low income. And so we got to start holding folks accountable, being like, listen, these services need to be provided. We're the #1 state for business in the country. We don't need to cut taxes anymore, particularly when it's leading to higher taxes in another part of our economy that people cannot be able to afford those. And so we got to use that, and got to start messaging on that, because we need a state government that invests in our people. We have the most powerful state government in the country, the most powerful state legislature in the country. They have the power to fix these overnight. And we can actually save money, do things so much better than we are, but we aren't. And that's why I said it's a math problem wrapped in a political problem. And so I'll wrap it up here because I know we got to continue. But I want to thank y'all so much for coming here. In terms of our campaign, I've been honored that this campaign for treasurer has been endorsed by the Teachers Association, the State Employees Association, the Firefighters and Paramedics Association, and the Police Benevolent Association. We are the only campaign since 2008 to have all those investments. So the people that depend on this role, the people that care about this role, are supporting us, and I sincerely hope that I can earn y'all support, and more importantly, earn your vote in November. So thank y'all so much. Really enjoyed being here.